Well, hi, this is Lindsay Bloom, and you're listening to TV Confidential.
Ed Robertson, thanking you for making us part of your Memorial Day weekend as we bring you this week's edition of TV Confidential, radio talk show about television that will welcome Tim Gray. Later on in the hour, Tim Gray, award-winning documentary filmmaker and the founder of the World War II Foundation. Tim's latest documentary takes a deep dive into Bob Hope, the impact that Bob Hope had on World War II, and the many risks that Hope took, logging thousands and thousands and thousands of miles all over the world between 1941 and 1945, all to entertain our troops, and often putting his own life on the line in the process. Calendar year 2025 marks the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II, while this coming Thursday, May 29th, marks the 122nd anniversary of the birth of Bob Hope. Tim Gray will join us later on in the hour. We hope you stay tuned for that. In the meantime, we'll begin our first hour by bringing you part two of a conversation that began last week with Harry Castleman and Walter J. Podrazik. Harry and Wally are the co-authors of Watching TV, American Television, Season by Season, a sweeping look at the history of television from 1944 through the present day, from its early inception as a passive activity to its current form as a multi-tiered viewing experience. Watching TV not only takes you behind the scenes of every primetime season and every primetime schedule over the past 8 decades, but includes an ongoing timeline of the major personalities, trends, stories, and breakout shows of each television season. Watching TV, available wherever books are sold through Syracuse University Press as well as Amazon.com. One of you mentioned the word self-contained. Episodic television, once upon a time, you do 39 episodes a year and you read 39 different stories. And if Jed Clampett said he liked broccoli in episode 1, and in episode 35, he says something, I don't like broccoli, the writers didn't think about that. They were just thinking in terms of the best stories possible. But in the last 30 to 40 years, there's been more of an attempt on telling contained stories and having what television showrunners and television staff writers called the Bible of the show, and taking that Bible seriously so that you don't have one character point in this episode and you contradict yourself 10, 12 shows later. Harry first and Wally.
And of course, to us, that one of the real breakthroughs on that is a show that I know, Ed, is close to your heart, The Fugitive. And, you had a series that, okay, it has a specific format, a setup. This is a guy who's on the run, unfairly charged with killing his wife, et cetera, et cetera. And it ran for several seasons. And when the producers wanted to do a conclusion for the series, to wrap it up, the network people said, why? Why would you want to do that? It's going to kill off the older episodes, and they won't be able to rerun. And they said, we've had fans watching this show for 4 years. We have to give them an ending. And of course, they came up with a 2-part ending to The Fugitive, which was real high point of mid-60s TV.
And it was the one that redefined the whole idea of ending a series. Because within a year or so, I think ahead of that, Perry Mason had its final episode. Yes. And all it was is they called it The Case of the Final Fade Out. And there were a lot of cameos and all in it by production people and all. But it was no different than any other episode of Perry Mason. There was no narrative going forward or being wrapped up and all. It was just, this is formula television. That's the end of this particular exercise in the formula. Whereas The Fugitive said, we did a formula. We did it great. There were a lot of self-contained episodes in terms of the people Kimball encountered, but the audience wants to know what happened with Kimball, what happened with Gerard, and what happened with this one-armed man. We got to tell them. And it, what was it, the end of summer, I guess, the end of the summer reruns, when it played as a first run before the new season. It's almost what you would call burn it off period.
And yet at the same time, traditionally, not to cut you off, Wally, but at the same time back then, a lot of shows built audiences during the summer reruns. I can see the strategy for airing those final two.
Oh, yeah.
in August.
Yeah.
And
So in any
because
case,
it was
just
the
changed
last.
what TV could do.
Yeah.
Now, that didn't immediately change it. We're not going to see the Sopranos through lines for a couple more decades, but it at least said you can do this differently. And because it was one of the highest rated shows in TV history up to that point, there was a message there that it works.
Watching TV has been updated and re-released as a fourth edition through Syracuse University Press. It is available bookstores everywhere, as well as press.syr.edu, as well as amazon.com, where books are sold online. Harry Castleman and Walter J. Podrazik
You got it.
are with us via Zoom. There are a couple of things I want to touch on, but before we leave the topic of finales, and this is what I think, I want you guys to jump in and tell me what you think. In the era of The Fugitive, in the era of the Mary Tyler Moore Show, when a series had an opportunity to produce a final episode and tell one final story, more often than not, they wrote an ending that was true to the series, true to the characters, and was best for the show. In this era of interactive television and social media, we talked about how newspapers and entertainment publications have designated recappers. I know this from experience. A lot of production staffs have, maybe an intern whose job is to pay attention to social media and see how fans are reacting. And it seems to me, more often than not, when a series writes a final episode today, they tend to think in terms of what the fans want first before what's really best for the show. What do you guys think? I've killed the conversation.
No, I'm just trying to think of a specific instance. Well, okay, Game of Thrones final season. I don't know if that was deliberately designed for the fans or what, but it kind of created a Game of Thrones is great, skip the last season.
Yeah.
Is what happens when people are describing the story. Look, you could find good moments in that last season, but it was like, God, we've got to wrap this up, and yet not mess up any potential future spin-offs. And by the way, the author hasn't really written the material we're drawing from for about 2 seasons now, so we're kind of winging it. So yeah, it is harder to do a character appropriate, thematic appropriate finale than you would think. And to illustrate that, both like for instance, when Roseanne came back, was revived as a series, and Will and Grace were revived. Both of them had gone into these incredibly convoluted uh, violations of everything in the series in their original finales.
Yeah.
And so in the returns, they both basically say, oh, you know what? Ignore that.
Yeah.
It was a dream. A couple of the characters just had a dream. It was a bad dream. We're back with the premise that you like. So it is, as they say, really hard to do it just right.
And there are a lot of instances, unfortunately, in my mind, when we start talking about series endings, I start thinking of ones that I think were unsuccessful, and because it's hard. And my classic example of that in the last 25 years is Lost. It was a wonderful series. I really enjoyed watching it. It was a fascinating premise, and you're following it along. And I don't know. I wasn't know if I was trying to figure out what was going on. That really wasn't the point. It was just imagining this existence and how they were going to deal with it, and what was going to come in and how they were going to get out of it. And the writers, I think, had come up with this great premise, but I don't think they had ever decided how it was going to end, and then they decided they wanted to end it. It had been going on long enough, and they came up with what I felt, and I think a lot of people felt, was very unsatisfying. And I don't necessarily hold it against them. It was, I don't know how I would have ended it. But you have to they have to make that leap of faith, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
My go-to example for what I feel is a classically bad series finale is Sex and the City. Although in listening to you guys, I wrote down a second one, which I'll get to in a second. But to me, the best ending for Sex and the City would be Carrie ends up alone, because Carrie's a malcontent. She goes through all these different relationships. She's not. I mean, of the four core characters, she is the least happy, or probably never is going to be happy. They ended the show by having her with Chris Noth as Big, because that's the ending that the viewers wanted. And I can see why they made that choice. I didn't think it was the best choice for the show.
And just like that, you have a revival years later.
Well put, Wally.
The other example I put in the last year, I streamed all 9 seasons of Suits, including the last 2, which were not. Once Patrick Adams left the show, it became very uneven. And then they found their footing again when they brought him back in season 9. But then we get to the final episode where it seems like they were in a rush to figure out how to tie all these loose ends. And again, the biggest hole in that finale is the absence of Meghan Markle. Now, we understand why Meghan Markle wasn't on, because she was busy.
She had other things going on.
My girlfriend and I, we stopped the stream several times and looked at each other. It's like, okay, you can't. We understand you can't physically bring Meghan Markle, but there's no reason not to hire a double and shoot her from the back. And because I'm blanking on her character's name.
But wouldn't that have been disappointing to you guys? I mean, if it would seem like a kind of a cheap escape, wouldn't that have been disappointing?
No, because logically she should be there. Because if Mike was there, meaning the final episode of Suits ended with everyone gathered for Harvey and Donna's wedding. Rachel should be there. There's no reason why Rachel can't fly from Seattle to wherever the final episode took place to be at the wedding of the man who was very important to Mike's career and who brought Mike and her together. While I understand why you could not practically get Meghan Markle there, there's still a way to get the character in there, at least sort of.
Well, I think what we've just illustrated in all of our examples is why Harry and I have enjoyed and still enjoy telling the story of television, because you care about those characters.
Yeah.
You care about those plot threads, you care about those story arcs, and that's what we try to capture throughout all of TV history, right up to the present day. And there is, on our part, a real affection and respect for not only the producers and the programmers, but the viewers. We're all on the same team. We as viewers are on the same team saying, here are the ones that do us upright. These are the shows that we want to certainly celebrate. And if others fall a little short, we try to explain the context of why it didn't quite work. But mostly, it's all of us sharing what television allows us to do. As one, maybe on a time delay,
Yeah.
but still, as one, we are sharing the presentation of something that doesn't require us to go to a movie theater, doesn't require us to go to a live stage play. It's in our homes, and we get to see and share the stories and characters and some really good writing and really good production and really good music. All of that is why television still matters, even if the way we watch it today is all over the map.
Yeah.
It could be on your phone. It could be on your laptop. It could be looking over somebody's shoulder, because I've done this, on a cross-country airplane flight, saying, well, I don't hear it, but I'll bet I could figure out what's going on just watching the pictures on this person's laptop screen as he's going along. So
And
we love TV.
And, you know, what excited us years ago when we started working on this book is that it was, we were digging up and discovering the story of television and trying to encapsulate that and put it in context for people to follow. And to us, it was a thrilling story with characters that arise out of nowhere, become big stars, and then begin to fade off and be replaced by others. And so, you know, the three elements in the book, and I think you kind of alluded to it earlier, was, you know, we look at what was actually on television, what was going on behind the scenes in the entertainment media world that affected what was on television, and on a larger scope, what was going on in the nation and the world around that also affected what was on TV. And it knits together, as to us anyway, feeling it's a fascinating story that keeps going.
It's a fascinating story that keeps going and is now in its fourth edition. It just shows how much television has changed since the original publication of Watching TV in 1980. Watching TV updated, re-release as a fourth edition through Syracuse University Press. Available bookstores everywhere, as well as press.syr.edu, amazon.com, wherever books are sold online.
Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back.
This portion of TV Confidential is brought to us by our friends at Front Porch Realty, the community of realtors in the Northern Bay Area of California that is committed to finding the solution that is best for their clients. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or looking to sell or lease your property in Northern California, call Karen Strain at 415-886-7411 or visit frontporchrealtygroup.com for more information on how they can help you.
One more item. If you're starting a company, particularly one that is in an emerging market, you know that averting any sort of legal dispute is crucial to your business plan. Our friends at Tectonic Law offer an array of services that can help you avoid and preempt future litigation while also developing and protecting your intellectual property and intangible assets. Tectonic Law serves the needs of a host of emerging industries throughout California and beyond, including industrial designers, beverage makers, artists, farmers, retail stores, health practitioners, wellness experts, cosmetics manufacturers, nonprofit organizations, innovators in sustainable practices, and libraries. Go to tectoniclaw.com to learn more about how Tectonic Law can help your business thrive. tectoniclaw.com. Rock solid representation for groundbreaking industries.
Hi, this is Jacqueline Scott, and you are listening to TV Confidential.
Earlier in our conversation, we were talking about. I think Harry talked about how when VCRs, recording devices, first came onto the scene. One of the discoveries from consumers is with beta players, then VCRs, and now DVRs, is the fact that if you're not home Thursday at 8 o'clock, you could record the episode or the special and watch it on your own time. That brings to me the question of physical media. Now, one of the ongoing debates the last 10 years usually comes up around Christmas time because that's a slow news week, but there's usually the annual thing is physical media dying, or Blu-rays and DVDs dying? And every time someone sounds the death knell, a Shout Factory or a Kino Lorber will come up with a new strategy that shows that physical media is still viable. What do you guys think of that?
Well, I'll jump and make a quick comparison. I was astonished to see that cassettes are making a comeback in the music world, but on a very specialized niche audience.
Audio cassettes?
Audio cassettes, yeah.
Oh, good, because I have audio cassettes of the Fugitive Capture audiobook, man. I was going to junk those. There's a market for
Well,
them.
yeah. But in terms of physical media for TV, look, the industry, the ones who are responsible for turning them out, don't like you to be able to watch what you want whenever you want to watch it, once you've made the purchase. And so it's not going to be dead, but there is going to be this push pull that's going to continue because as consumers reach different levels of, I can't stand the commercial that keep popping up on all of the streaming. So let me just have a copy of it. Let me have a copy of it, and then I could watch it as often as I want. There's still people who live and die by box sets. But the reality is, for most viewers, I would predict, I would posit that they just want something on. They just want something on. And if that something happens to include commercials, that's fine. If you say you can have this for a low cost and suffer with commercials, or you can get this $50 Blu-ray and have to deal with paying for it and getting a player and all that, I'll just let it stream over me. So it's not going to be dead, but it's going to, I think, be increasingly niche, which is okay because the people who really want it, and they are going to, you don't want to see my collection of box sets. I'll just leave it at that.
Well, and I think we take, particularly in the book, we take appropriately the historical view of all that. And the big event in that, and this comes from my background as a lawyer, was the Betamax case, in which the United States Supreme Court ruled. Of course, it was dealing with the Betamax recording, not a VCR. But the point being is that the studios were trying to say that it was illegal for people to record programs off the air and play it back at their own time because it gave them physical control of a product that the studios owned. And of course, the Supreme Court wound up saying, no, if it's just for home use, it's okay. It doesn't violate the Copyright Act because it's fair use, which is an exemption from the ownership under the Copyright Act. And that, of course, is what greenlit the growth in video cassette recorders. And being an old guy that I am, I guess, I loved having physical copies of things. I loved having stuff on video cassette recorders. But, the studios and the networks never conceded defeat in that battle. And it took them a long time. But eventually, with the era of streaming, they wind up coming out ahead because, once again, like in the old days, they control your ability to watch. Now, yes, it's different. You don't have to be home at Tuesday at 8:30 to watch Hogan's Heroes, but you have to pay them to watch what you want to stream, and that can be changed by them, as we've seen with a lot of streaming services. They will just suddenly delete a bunch of stuff that they had there for a long time, and you say, "What happened to it? I wanted to watch it."
Which is bad. Which is my argument for, if you have a show that you really, really love and you want it part as your own personal library to pull out when you want to decompress, and binge watch something. To me, that's one of the arguments for getting a box set or getting a physical copy of your favorite season, because as Harry said earlier, not everything is available on streaming when you want it. They change their libraries around because they can.
As always, the question is, how much do you want to pay for it?
Well, the retail price for watching TV, American television, season by season is about $65, about $40 if you buy it on Amazon. If you love television, if you love the history of television, if you want to take a deep dive into how we got where we are today, how television as we know it has evolved over the past 100 years, you definitely want to get a copy of Watching TV, American Television, Season by Season by Harry Castleman and Walter J. Podrazik, available through our friends at Syracuse University Press, bookstores everywhere, press.syr.edu, as well as Amazon.com, wherever books are sold online. We'll take a quick time out, then we'll talk some more with Harry and Wally when we come back on TV Confidential.
Who needs a vacation? Are you ready for an unforgettable getaway? Start packing your bags because Branson, Missouri, the vacation and entertainment capital of the U.S., is calling your name. For just $99 per person, here's what you get. A full 3-day, 2-night stay in a luxury resort hotel, a delicious full breakfast buffet every morning you're here, and when you call right now, free show tickets worth up to $100. That's right, free show tickets to an award-winning show on us. You don't have to leave the country for an amazing vacation. You can drive or fly to Branson and have an incredible time. Whether you bring in the whole family or just planning a romantic escape, this trip is built for you. We guarantee you'll love Branson. This is not a timeshare. It's just an unbeatable vacation deal for only $99 per person. You book now, you can use your tickets anytime this year. You don't even need to know your travel dates to lock in the special price. Hurry, because this offer won't last long. Call our Branson vacation experts today.
800-435-1887. 800-435-1887. 800-435-1887. That's 800-435-1887.